Greetings and welcome into Forte Catholic. I am your host, Taylor Stroll, and I am joined by the masked wonder, Father Anthony Sciarappa, who is so PC, because that's what we think of when we think of Father Anthony Sciarappa, that he's wearing a mask when he's the only person in the room, because he is currently 2,112 miles away from me. Welcome into the show, Father.
Thank you. Well, first of all, better safe than sorry. I care about your health. Second of all, what was that intro?
Right.
What happened?
What do you mean?
Where was the what's up? What was did you say ahoy? What were the words you said?
I used lots of greetings and salutations.
Yeah, you did. I am taken aback by this.
I asked you right before we hit record if you had listened to last week's episode, because I don't assume it of my co-host, but you are the best co-host at listening to the episodes. You actually care, and no one else does. So you listened to the other shows, but you actually told me, you're like, hey, I'm actually driving, because you made an error that we could talk about where you have to drive for the next 2 hours, and you're going to listen to the show. And last week's show, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something different. And I just started the show, and I was like, I'm going to just be creative with the intro for a little while and see what happens. And because there's been this tradition, I have yelled that intro since episode 11. Mm-hmm. We're currently on 196.
Woo!
So I wanted to try something different. What do you think?
Oh, it's terrible. I want everyone listening now to, if you're driving, pull over, start tweeting at Taylor, get on all of his social media, and tell him to stop this.
Well, here's the
terrible idea.
Here's the thing. People have been tweeting at me to stop yelling for 3 years.
See, that's what I like about you, because you kept doing it.
It's the one thing
I can't count on a lot. Parish life is insane. Things change all the time. But when I turn on your podcast, I'm going to hear what's up, and I feel like something in my life is consistent. And now you've broken that. And I am not a fan.
You're very Catholic. You very much like tradition.
Absolutely. Even the dumb ones.
Even the dumb small tree traditions
Especially
that make people angry. So here's where this came from. I'm just going to be open and honest for a little while. I've said on the podcast the last 2 weeks that 2 weeks ago was the first time ever that the show didn't have a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. And it's because people keep trolling me. And no one's writing anything, but there are multiple people just going and giving the show a 1 or 2 star. And it makes me so angry. Like, you have no idea. So, I keep asking people, because, that stuff, it's dumb, but it actually matters. If people are going to come across a show and they see that it's not 5-star, they're probably not going to subscribe, and they don't really even have a reason why. So some people do it as a joke, and it's mean, and I like jokes, but some jokes are just mean. This actually messes with not just my feelings, but it actually messes with how I support my family, and it makes me mad.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I was two things. I was like, one, some people don't like the yelling, and they've told me they're never going to listen to the yelling. Now, for 3 years, people have said that, and I was like, you know what? If you don't like me, take it or leave it. Fine. But then I was like, you know what? I don't want to lose listeners just because they don't like that one thing. Literally, it's 4 seconds. And if you're not going to listen to an hour show because of 4 seconds, I'm going to just troll people for a while. I don't know if it'll come back. I don't know. But I did it last week. I last week's show. And no one said anything. So it made me think no one really cares all that much except for you.
So here's the thing. Yelling is not all that you are, Taylor, but it is an important part, okay?
I can still yell. It just doesn't have to be at the intro.
But the people that don't like that intro, they're bad people, and you don't want them listening to your podcast. You want quality listeners. The people who like that yell,
I don't care about the quality of my listeners. I just want more. It's all about quantity, not quality.
I understand that. I think we come from two different podcasting motivations. I mean, there's one similar motivation that we want to, spread the gospel in some way.
No, but I'm gonna stop you. Here's the thing.
What?
If you're such a hypocrite. If you believed everything that you're saying to me right now, you would have never canceled the flu.
No, so people have no idea what that is. People have no idea what you're talking about.
It doesn't matter. It's just for me. The show's all for me. I can yell or not if I don't.
I didn't cancel that because random people didn't like it. I canceled it because people who I actually care about didn't care for it.
I loved it. It's the greatest thing you've ever done.
I also got bored. It was it was a short gimmick. You couldn't. There's only so many times I can yell about how great my own tweets are, which was the entire premise of that 15-minute long show. And Nick and I, my brother, we did it as a joke. It ran its course, and that's it.
No,
So
it did
I
not
am
run
not a
its course.
hypocrite.
There are 10 more episodes at least than you.
No, they're not. Stop lying to your people.
Okay, so you don't like it, and it's cool.
No.
No matter what, this is just another instance of everything that's happened over the last 3 months. No matter what I do, half the people are gonna hate it. So
you have a small idea of what it's like to be a priest.
oh no, you have no idea.
Mm.
Oh, you want? Here's. I'll let you choose.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about how dumb you are, or how bad of a person I am?
Whoa, there's great content for both. But I feel like you just called me a hypocrite very loudly on your show. So let's hear what's going on with you.
Okay. Have you ever had God clearly speak to you and it made you super angry?
Yes, I have.
Is there one off the top of your head that you could think of?
Yep.
Okay. Be ready to share that. Possibly, because I'm going to share mine.
Okay.
Yesterday I was driving, and here was the plan. My family and I were going to go to this park. We're going to walk around for an hour and catch Pokemon. It's a weekly thing we do.
Right.
Same night of the week, same time. It's a Pokemon thing that people wouldn't understand. Whatever. We go from 6 to 7 on this specific day. All right. So we're driving up there. I have plans to go work out on the way home. This park is pretty close to my gym. So I'm driving in my little car that is older than everyone that's currently in high school. It's a super old car that literally every time I drive it, I think it's going to fall apart and I'm going to have to push it like the Flintstones, literally cut a hole in the bottom and just run. My wife is in the nice car, 2010 Honda Odyssey. It was gifted to us. Great car. We love it. We're driving down the road and my wife calls me. She's behind me. I can kind of see her. We exit off of the on ramp, on ramps or whatever, the little side roads off the highway. I know I said exit off the on ramp, but I don't know what it's called. Off ramp? I don't know.
Yeah. Obviously, this is not a hard. Yeah, it's the off ramp.
So we're driving down there, and then she calls me freaking out. She's like, "The car's not working," and I'm like, "What do you mean the car's not working?" And so I'm like, "Okay, just get to the park, and we'll fix it." And what does she do? She pulls off on the side of the off ramp and it makes it impossible for me to get to. So this is literally the longest turnaround in town. It takes me 10 minutes to right. We were 20 seconds apart. It takes me 10 minutes to get back to her. The battery's dead. And the way she parked, I love this woman. The way she parked made it impossible. It made it impossible for me to get next to the car to jump.
Yeah.
So I'm so upset. I can't tell you how much I was upset. I said a lot of things that I shouldn't under my breath. I said a few things that I shouldn't over my breath. Is that is that like the on and off ramp? Is over, under, and over? Does that work?
No, not really. But we get what you're saying. It works.
Cool. Oi!
Oi! Salutations and welcome.
So I get back over there. I can't jump it. I'm just like, and then
wait, what were you like?
So we finally I have her put it in neutral, and I literally pushed the van. So I didn't get that. Spoiler alert: I didn't end up going to the gym, but I pushed the van by myself. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, yeah, that counts.
Finally got it to where it needed to jump it. The battery was so dead that it took 15 minutes for it to even start. The car started. Can you guess what happened next?
The car started and then exploded.
No, that would be terrible because I would be dead. It literally stopped, and it was the weirdest thing. The engine kept running, but the entire car shut off other than the engine. And I was like, how does that even happen?
I don't know how cars work, so I couldn't tell you.
So it takes another 15, 20 minutes trying to jump it. It does the same thing. So finally I'm like, I leave my kids and my wife. It's in a parking lot off of this side of the road. And it's 1,000 degrees in Texas because it's in the middle of the afternoon. So they go sit under a tree. I leave. I go to the car place, get a new battery. And while I'm there, I'm just fuming. I haven't listened to angry rap in a long time because I'm trying to be a better person. All I did was listen to angry rap the whole way there. I was so upset at everything and everyone, right? I get to the car place, and I needed a battery and then the tools to replace the battery from far away because I was parked in the middle of nowhere. So I buy that. The total was $150.20. There's a reason I bring this up, because this is how God talked to me. It was with that exact number. My favorite verse in the Bible is from Genesis, which is which book in the Bible?
That's the first one.
It's the first one. So the number one, right? My chapter and verse that I love is from a story of Joseph and his brothers, where he's forgiving his brothers. It's that reconciliation moment.
Yeah.
And he says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Like the things that, selling him into slavery, all that stuff, God used their evil and meant it for good. I spent $150.20. 150-20. First book of the Bible, 50th chapter, 20th verse. Okay. I get it. And I'm just like, God, I'm so angry right now, and I don't want to think about you. I'm really upset. I don't want to be happy. I don't want to see you in this moment. I just want to sit in my anger. And so I do. And then I'm angry for a while, and I go over to the car. It takes me, 10, 15 minutes to change out the battery. Right. I'm still listening to the angry rap. The car starts. Okay. I get in the car. I have to drive the old battery back to the car shop where I just went to. So my son's with me because all of my family doesn't fit in my little car. My son's with me in the van. We drive over to the car shop, and on the drive over there, I'm still listening to the angry rap. And then finally, I start to calm down. I'm like, okay, God, I see you in the midst of this moment. I see you in the midst of this very frustrating thing. Everyone's upset. I'm super angry. My wife's upset. My son, is super upset because we didn't get to go catch Pokemon. There's a new Pokemon that came out. We were all going to get it. We couldn't get it. We still haven't gotten it. Like, he's upset and doesn't really understand what's going on. Everyone's upset. And I'm like, okay, fine, God, I see you in this moment. So I turn back on the Catholic podcast that I'm listening to. As I'm driving, I'm listening to the Catholic podcast. I get over to the car shop, and even though I'm listening to the Catholic podcast, like the anger and the frustration starts to rush back. As I'm hearing that, I hear this story of a saint I had never heard of. Have you ever heard of Saint Catherine of Egypt?
No.
I hadn't either. So literally yesterday was the first time I heard about her. She was, it doesn't matter. She's a cool saint. Go look her up. But I'm learning.
Very holy, lived in Egypt. Yeah.
Right. So up on Mount Sinai, like her remains are up at the top of Mount Sinai. Cool.
That's cool.
So we go and they drop it off at the car shop. And then I start stressing out. About money, like not the 150-20, but like all the stuff the car's going to need work on. I'm stressing out about money, and I switched jobs 3 months ago. It's like money's still just kind of stressful, and I start getting really upset again. And then I had to call an Uber. So my son and I get an Uber, which is a strange experience for him. He's like, why are we getting in this man's car? We don't know. He's like, I thought this is what we weren't supposed to do. It was just very strange. And he's like, why aren't we going to catch Pokemon? He's very confused.
Right.
And I kind of had some time to just like sit and quiet. And so the anger and the frustration came back. And I was like, I'm still mad, God, not at you, but at the whole situation. And then I get in the car. Can you guess what country my driver was from?
Egypt.
He's from Egypt.
He's in Texas.
In Texas, yeah.
He got very lost.
Yeah, exactly. No, his sons go to school here. He got a green card. Was able to live here. Really cool. We got to talk the whole time. I was like, he says he's from Egypt, but at first he's like, he says hello and he sounds like he's from here. And then about 30 seconds later, he starts talking completely differently. He says, I'm not going to do the accent, but he says in his very thick Egyptian accent, I'm glad you appreciated my Texan accent. I was like, yeah, I mean, you sounded like you're from here. And then he sounds very Egyptian, right? So he just played a joke, and it was really funny. And so I start smiling, right? And we're having this great conversation about him and how he came to America and all this stuff. And then I was like, God, I just heard Genesis 150-20 in this frustrating thing. And the one thing I've heard about God in the last hour and a half is about this new saint from Egypt. And I'm never the person, when I'm traveling, when I'm stuck with, I've talked about this, when I'm traveling on a plane, I'm never talking about Jesus. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
But in the car, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring it up. I was like, ironically enough, like literally 10 minutes ago, I just heard about a new saint from Egypt. And he was like, who was it? And I was like, it's Saint Catherine of Egypt. He said, "Oh, I've been there." He said that in the morning you start at 4 a.m. and if you start at 4 a.m. you'll get to the top of Mount Sinai at 10 a.m. And then they have this whole it's the largest what did he say? The oldest monastery, I think he said in the world or in Egypt. I can't remember. I think it was the whole world.
It's probably close, you know.
Yeah. So like up on the top of Mount Sinai, it would make sense, right? Like old place, well-renowned,
right.
well-known place from a long time ago in Judaism and Christianity. So he's like, I've been there and I loved it. It's beautiful. Like it just feels like a very holy place and a very spiritual place because it's old and there's tradition and there's, you know, she's there. And I was just like, really, God? Really? You haven't talked to me in months, and the point you decide to talk to me is when I'm super upset when I go to a car shop and it's the dumb amount of money that I had to pay. And then my Uber driver, I'm having to take an Uber because I'm frustrated that my car isn't working. And he's from Egypt, who's the saint I just said. I was so mad and also laughing. And God is silly.
I love that God trolled you. It's a beautiful thing.
He very much did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's so many times where I'm just like, you know, after I sin or after something goes bad, that I just don't want God to be any part of my life, like, you know, for an hour or for a few minutes. And he just absolutely just, he's like, you know what, Taylor? It doesn't matter what you want. I'm showing up, and I'm going to be there. And I think I got out of my anger a lot faster. Not fast, but faster than I would have.
Good. I'm glad.
All right. What's your story about being mad at God whenever he talked to you?
Oh, yeah. I was in high school, and I was dating a girl, and then God was like, you should be a priest. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Why would I ever do that? You don't become a priest. Priest simply exists. But I warmed up to the idea, and it turned out to be pretty great.
You sure did, which actually leads me perfectly into the next thing that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a question that I just randomly thought about. I was listening to love songs. There's a new, what are they called? I wanted to say Shane and Shane, but Dan and Shay. There you go. Shane and Shane's the Christian one. Dan and Shay. I love the new album, super summer. We were on vacation listening to all these country love songs, and you texted me as I'm listening to it. I'm like, are priests allowed to listen to love songs? Is this like, and then I was like, not only are you allowed, but like, do you? Because I feel like that would be strange. What is your relationship with love songs, Father Andy?
Well, I mean, we're allowed to listen to love songs. We're just not allowed to have emotions. So when we get ordained, those get removed. And so it doesn't matter what we listen to because it doesn't affect us all. No.
Is that what grace is? The removal of emotions?
Super no. Okay, right. Okay. No. Yeah, absolutely you can. And I think like you don't have if you are a priest and you don't see.
I'm not.
If I'll flip it on you for a second. If you're a priest and you don't see how good marriage is, if there's not a part of you that says that's a beautiful thing, then you've got something wrong with your heart. You know, if you're a Catholic guy and you're like, you see no beauty or no goodness in the priesthood, then there's something wrong with your heart. If you're a woman and you are like utterly horrified at the idea of religious life and see no worth or beauty in it, there's something wrong with your heart. So, I listen to love songs. Recently, I've listened to like a lot of podcasts for the last few years. And listening
recently for the past few years. No one's ever said that's how you know you're getting old. You just said recently for the past few years.
Because that's what it feels like. Because most of my life I listened to music, and the last 4 years I listened to podcasts, and that feels like no time at all. Yikes. But yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, one, good music is good music, and especially if the lyrics are good and getting at some kind of truth about love, that's interesting. And sometimes you just want to, let yourself just feel feelings. Just listen to I turn on some emo music. Sometimes I want to feel sad. Let's listen to some sad music. Sometimes I'm angry. Let's listen to some angry music. That stuff is fine.
Yeah, angry love songs. Those are the best.
Oh my gosh. Yes, though. Like breakup songs and stuff. Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah. Breakup songs should be the only songs you're listening to.
Exactly.
Those are the only ones that are allowed.
On a serious note, I think just like, I think we all have to be aware of what's going on in our own hearts, right? Because you feel stuff, you feel emotions, that's fine, and that's normal, but you have
32% blockage.
Right? You have to see how you have to make sure that the valves are clear, you don't get, heart disease. But also you have to make sure, like, how am I reacting to these things, right? Am if I'm listening to this kind of music and all it's doing is making me feel lonely and getting me into a dark place, like a really dark place, like you should stop doing that. You should go talk to someone. You should go
Doctor, it
make sure
hurts
you're
when I
doing
do this. We'll stop
Yeah.
doing that.
Exactly. But if you just listen to a music that kind of music that you like and appreciate, yeah, that's fine.
Good. I'm very proud of you. You answered it so well, because the way I was thinking about it was just like everything else that's going on in our culture these days, where
Yeah.
if you do it, it's bad. If you don't do it, it's bad. And you articulated very well that it's probably that, but there's a very fine line.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our first segment. Whenever we come back, we're going to be with two people that I absolutely look up to. This is a kind of a dream come true for me to talk to them. So don't go anywhere. It'll be a nice little surprise for you. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. And Father Anthony, I'm very, very excited about our dual guests today. We've got two guests, which is not usually a thing. So we have 4 talking heads, and the two of them look way better than you or I do. So
That's fair.
I've been a huge fan of CCO. For those in America, we like to call it Canadian Focus. But we'll see what the leaders of it here have to say. So Andre and Angèle Renier are here today with us from summer vacation. Welcome on to the show.
Thanks. We had to like jump out of the pool and like brush our hair and try to be spiffy.
Although I'm sporting the summer vacation look right now, so
You are. I did notice that usually the wife always looks better than the husband. That's just a rule that God made, that we can't break that rule. And you are you're wearing it looks like you just went fishing, and your lovely wife there looks like she can go into a business meeting right now. So she cleaned up very well from the pool.
well, now you know who gets a real work done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one is.
Yeah, I do everything.
Yes, I just look good. Yeah.
I can.
Well, we literally just said that she looks better, and then you said that she does all the work. So what really do you bring to the table, Andre?
Well, I'm hard of hearing. I have no idea. I just in my head here, I've got a whole dialogue happening here.
Very good, very good. Well, I got to tell you a little bit before we hit record here that I've been a huge fan of CCO. Here I am in southern Texas, and I found out what CCO was because actually when I was up, we got all the connections. Father Anthony's a priest in Pittsburgh. I was right down the road in Steubenville, Ohio. And I got invited to a men's Bible study, and they were using this discovery series from CCO, and I was like, what is CCO? And I went through this Bible study series. I've worked in youth ministry for over a decade, and I've had all kind of resources thrown at me, and most of them I'm like, either I don't like them, or it's like, this is good, but I could do a similar thing, right? And then I got the CCO series, and I was like, this is way better than anything I've ever done, or anything that I could come up with. And again, Andre, I for many, many years, I just connected CCO with you. I got to meet you very briefly a couple of years ago. And then you also told me that your wife wrote that series. So again, I'm like, come on, Andre, what's going on here?
What? Speak up a little louder here, because I'm not hearing.
That's not something anyone's ever accused me of, is speaking quietly. But no, really, we're joking. But I've been a huge fan of what CCO does, and especially just discipleship series. You also have a new book that just came out. But I first want to just kind of get to know the two of you. So how did first of all, Andre, the thing that you won is you tricked that lovely woman into marrying you. So how did you guys meet, and then how did you guys start CCO?
Well, I happen to be sporting this little outfit here, and she was
Wait, this is important though,
yeah,
because if you only hear the podcast, you need to check out the YouTube video because it's a great shirt.
It is a great shirt.
It is a good shirt.
Underrated. It's amazing. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, actually, it's a story about how Angèle and I met. I think it really speaks of God's providence, what he wanted to accomplish, using both of us to accomplish something which I believe is so important right now, is to bringing back those wandering Catholics back into the church. And one thing that's unique about CCO is that we are both founders. That usually don't see that, where the husband and wife are founders. but we both brought to the table. I believe it's providence. Angèle brings something to the table. I bring something to the table. You probably can tell right now what I bring to the table, but and so it really was something back in 1987. Angèle and I met at a conference, and we hit it off. But at that conference, there is a passage of scripture that was spoken of. The whole conference is around something St. Paul said in Philippians chapter 1, verse 18. He says, all that matters to me is that Jesus be proclaimed. That is what brings me joy. Well, that's what our whole movement is built upon. When we heard those words, it was almost like God was speaking directly to both of us. For the rest of your life, Andre and Angèle, this is what's going to matter. Jesus be proclaimed. That is what's going to bring you joy. And so the whole movement is very evangelical in nature, Catholic evangelical, that we're really wanting to bring people back into a relationship with Jesus. And I think that's the discovery study that you're talking about, is really trying to bring that together. Proclaim that message in a clear and simple way, that Jesus is God, he is Savior, and he's inviting us to be in a relationship with us. And that's our story.
That's great. Yeah. And it's discipleship has been this buzzword for 5, 6, 7 years within the church. And I learned all these things about discipleship, and I was like, okay, I want to be one, and I want to make one. And I kept looking for how, and everybody was just saying, discipleship is great and we should all do it. I'm like, okay, like, what do I do? And then I found y'all's series, and I'm like, that's what it is. It's a Bible study series that you can walk through in weeks or months, or like I did it with a group of teens at my church, and like we would get through like half of a session, and we would talk for an hour and a half. We would just pick up where we left off the next week, and some of those groups, that group of kids is just continuing to live their faith now, and it was just it's the best resource that I've ever found for Bible study for young adults, and then maybe even some of those older teens. So y'all, not only did y'all create this great ministry, essentially helping college students and young adults continue to grow in their faith at a time where a lot of them are leaving, but y'all also started a family. And y'all wrote a book recently about the little ministry that y'all started there at home with the five members, or the 7 members with the 2 of you. And y'all wrote a book called Brick by Brick, building a strong family that won't lose their faith in a secular culture. So here y'all are, y'all are very successful in the ministry aspect of helping young people grow in their faith, but you've also have 5 kids who not only are going to mass and living their Catholic life, but they've also been, all 5 of them are missionaries. So you've done something right. Andre, I know we've been very kind to your wife today, but you must have done something right as well. So why don't y'all introduce the book to us?
Well, having done campus ministry for over 30 years, we had our alumni who are now raising their own family. Their own children are going to university. So, that's really making us feel old. But they were coming to us and saying, like, how did you do that with your kids? And at first we kind of just, pushed them away and said, I don't know. Like, I don't even know if it's going to stick. Like, they're doing good, but let's hope they keep doing well. But maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we're kind of like, okay, there's something to this, because our 3 eldest are married, and their spouses are all missionaries, and I mean professional missionaries. We all live by providence. There's no big money account that's feeding money to Renier children to become missionaries. Like, we're all going out and finding that money through God's people to support our ministry. So they're all like invested in this mission, and our 2 youngest are really into it as well. So we came back to the family and said, okay, what did we do right? If we did anything right, what did we do that helped you guys to make such good choices in life? And so this book is rooted out of family conversation in that living room. How did things go well? What went wrong? What could we do better? We just unpacked it with a lot of bacon and pancakes, to make Sundays even more interesting. And then just figured out, like, what are those patterns? What are the principles? Because it's not just how we did it. People want to know how we did it. So we tried to explain it, but we wanted to figure out the underlying principle, the philosophies that were there, because every family is going to have their own things that are going to work, because everybody's unique. So this is what every chapter has something written by every person in the family.
Oh, cool.
So it's an interesting read because there's a lot of voices and perspectives.
13-year-old, she feels now that she's an author, and she is. She was part of the process. We've been asked many times, okay, what would be, because they're in a panic state. What do I do with my children? What's the most important thing that you need to do, that we need to do? And my response is, there's not one thing. It's actually a package. There's many dimensions to it. That, like Angèle said, some people are going to do it a little differently, but the principles are kind of universal and rock solid, and so, yeah, the book is trying to communicate that it's a bunch of things that play a role in raising your children. But I want to make one point, which it fits with, who we are as missionaries with Catholic Christian Outreach, that we wanted our children from the very first, when they were growing up, that they are missionary also. It wasn't just Angèle and I, professional missionaries, on campus, but we are a missionary family. And if we're a missionary family, if you're a missionary, that you need to recognize that you have a role to play in the world. The world, we shouldn't see the world as something that we should be afraid of and kind of, hide from, but we want to prepare our children to be mobilizers in the world, the influencers in the world. So that, they shouldn't be afraid, that actually they should be very courageous in going out. Well, that disposition gave them a fascination, a sense of confidence in their faith, that it was not something that was that wasn't a strength builder, but it was something that it was a force to be reckoned with, if you will. So there was a confidence about being Catholic that our children grew up with. And today we're seeing the results of that.
Yeah, that's great. So here we are talking about you guys who have started a great ministry. I haven't started a great ministry, but I've started a ministry. Your parents, I'm parents. There's one outsider in this conversation, and that's the priest.
I love your outfit.
Yeah.
Predictable.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of times I'm wearing casual clothes when I record with Taylor, but I got dressed up today because I'm running from priestly thing to priestly thing today. But anyway, so I'm curious because professional ministry, it's not like a regular job. I mean, there are some things that are analogous to it. But did you ever run into difficulties, you both being in the same ministry? Did you see advantages or disadvantages to, both of you being in the same ministry? Was it ever tough to like turn it off at home, or like what was your experience with that, being a couple in ministry?
It's just kind of homogenous. It's there. And so we are talking to you on our vacation. We can't go anywhere. It's staycation. So everybody's literally outside in the backyard. But we're doing ministry right now. Like we're having the conversation. We do what we need to do. And it's, at times we have to put up boundaries and say, okay, like this is where family life has to, be preserved. We made a lot of those decisions actually through, most of the time, me covering the family, like letting Andre go. He's the extrovert. So like go, speak, influence, wear your shirts, do your thing. And I kept the home fires burning a lot of the time. So now as the kids are getting older, like we're able to balance that out. But the kids have always been very aware of everything that's happening in our movement, and they've overheard the conversations. And it's fascinating for them because there's always something new and exciting happening, and things that the Holy Spirit is opening up. So they lived in that fascination of what's God going to do next, I think, just as being little kids running around. And meeting awesome people. The people that come through our doors are always around the age of 20, and they're awesome. They're just such good role models that living a life as a missionary family has really been a blessing for our kids to have those awesome people around. Priests included.
Yeah. Well, the thinking here, that's another principle in the book, is that it takes a village to raise a family.
Yeah.
But we found that, and I think this is a good psychology when you're raising your children, is that children are always looking to a 10-year-old is looking to a 12-year-old learning how to behave. And so they had a mental image already, a kind of an imagination of kind of what they want, who they want to be already as they're going through their teens. They saw the role models and they wanted to be like them. They're cool. They're athletic. They're just good looking. That everything that these young people were bringing in, and so they knew that that's where they wanted to go. And so there wasn't a difficulty, an inside struggle of, okay, this is not relevant and I'm not fitting in. No, they knew what they wanted because they saw it, not in us, but in the people around us.
Yeah.
And that's to me key why youth ministry, what you're doing, is so important. And the role of the priest is so important because we had great priests that also became the great role models in our house. We'd come and we'd enjoy ourselves. They'd come and we'd just be silly and it's a time for the priest to kind of let go. Well, this kind of was rooted in the minds and hearts of our children. And
it gave a freedom to their expression of faith, right?
Yeah.
A freedom and these positive role models. So yeah, we've really enjoyed having ministry as our lifestyle because it has been a lifestyle.
Oh, to be 20 and cool and athletic and a good role model for young people again. Those were the days. So yeah, the last thing that I wanted to ask you guys was I think the thing that fascinated me the most, because I knew of you, but the fact that your kids were involved in the book, not just the subject, but also some of the authors, right? So was there anything that they said that surprised y'all? That it's like, oh, I didn't realize that they saw that or they noticed that, or was there any, if not, was there anything like really interesting that they brought up that you wouldn't have thought of?
Something that struck me when we discussed it was my oldest daughter, who we had given permission to date in grade 11 and ended up just in a not relationship. And it was a kind of a long Band-Aid getting pulled off with her and this guy. And we thought we were being really mature by giving her the freedom to choose this relationship, and it seemed important to her, so we kind of let her do it. And she said, you guys should have stepped in. You should have stopped it. I was begging for you on the inside for you to have boundaries, but you gave me the freedom I didn't want to have yet.
Wow.
I actually wanted you guys to say, you're not allowed to date. So we would have never read that from what, was coming from her belief or whatever, her body language or what everybody else was saying. But yeah, in the end, it was a disaster relationship and she regrets it. And she's like, yeah, like I really was asking to be there. So it gives us courage because our youngest two are girls. So, that's always like, you want to protect your daughters in that particular way. So it was really good advice to hear from her as now a mom of 3 saying, I needed more from you at that time.
It's a really good question. And, as I had like 30 seconds to reflect on it, but not a lot was surprising because it was our story together. So nobody, said, hey, and by the way, this, and we're going, what? Where'd this come from? No, we actually have talked about it. We lived it. It was like we were kind of sharing in it. But I will say this, that what became clear is that the gifting of each of the children came out in, some were, really disciplined in moving the project forward. Others were great writers. Others had good insight on credibility once it's done and formatting. And, to me, that was what it was exciting. It was that natural gifting was kind of coming to the top, and we could see it in how there's, what they're saying and how they're responding to the task.
That's great. That's great. Well, this has really been a privilege for me to talk to you guys because I've looked up to you and the work of CCO for so long in my ministry career, if you want to call it that, just for the last decade. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want people to go check out the book, Brick by Brick, Building a Strong Family That Won't Lose Their Faith in a Secular Culture. It's from Sophia Institute Press. The links are in the bio. You can find them wherever fine books are sold. But I want people to continue to learn from you guys and grow with you guys as I've been able to from afar, about as far as you can get here in America from where you guys are. But how can people stay connected with you guys and continue to grow with you?
Yeah, so our ministry, CCO, is www.cco.ca, so CA for Canada. And you can find a lot of things there. And then we're also just launching an Instagram account about the family and the book. I think our handle is Renier.family, or it's Brick by Brick. I can't remember. We've been arguing about how to label it last week.
I'll find it and link it down in the show notes.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciated the time getting to talk to y'all. And again, I got it. I'll put the link to your book, but Andre, you got to send me the link to that shirt. I want to get one myself. God bless you guys. Thanks so much for spending some time with us here on your summer vacation.
Take care.
Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and we can't let it go unnoticed. I know that this won't mean much for the podcast and radio audience, but behind Father Anthony the whole time has been a Forte Catholic hat on his bookshelf. And I don't understand why it's on your bookshelf.
It was just a little Easter egg there for anybody who watches the show on YouTube. Also fun, if we ever do another live version of my podcast, I'm going to keep the hat there as a little product placement for you, because I care about you. I care about your success. I like what you're doing. I support it.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, you said that you were going to invite me on Clerically Speaking this summer, and summer's almost over.
Yeah, well, guess what? A lot of things happened this summer we weren't expecting, Taylor, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. You want to talk about some happy things?
Heck yes.
Okay, so the other day I was watching Friends.
Oh, I thought you were talking about happy things, not
Oh, you don't like
overrated,
Friends?
not overrated things.
I think it's overrated, but it's still good. Just like the Beatles. They're overrated, but they're still good.
I actually haven't watched a lot of Friends, but I like hating on it because it makes people mad.
Okay, good. That's healthy.
Right?
So I started watching Friends all the way through on Netflix. And then right when I got to season 6, they pulled it off of Netflix. I'm like, well, I like my number one thing on Strengths Finder. Have you ever done the Strengths Finder test?
Yeah.
My number one is achiever. I need to achieve things.
Yeah.
And they took that away from me.
I must complete watching the show.
And then 4 months later, there's this thing called HBO Max. And like every good person, I just have my friends' passwords for all of these things. So
Beautiful.
I logged into HBO Max and I started watching Friends again. And somewhere in season 6, this all happens in the 90s. Yes, you were alive then. I was alive then.
Yes, technically.
And I saw a book on a bookshelf in the show. And this book was called Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Man, yeah.
And it's so 90s. So I was a huge fan of these books. I would read them on the toilet, like all of my like young preteen and teenage years. That's where the Chicken Soup for the Soul happened. And did you have a relationship with the Chicken Soup for the Soul books?
I'll be real honest. I mean, those books were like really popular growing up, and I just always assumed, even as a kid, they were for like sad wine moms who needed a little emotional pick me up. So I never read them.
Wow, I don't know what that says about either of us. all they
Taylor
were
was like, I want to be happy, and I was like, I like being sad. We were both sad, but
I can trick myself for a few minutes by reading this book. So, for those of you not born before the year of our Lord 1984, Chicken Soup for the Soul is just these happy stories. Very inspirational. Sometimes they were tear-jerking. Sometimes they were just lovely and nice little stories. And I was watching Friends, and I tweeted out on the old Twitter. I said, "Bring back Chicken Soup for the Soul," because I don't know about you, but as you mentioned, many things unexpected have happened this summer and before. And like the whole goal of this show is to bring the joy of the gospel, and I feel like those two things, joy and the gospel, are two very much needed things in the last few months. And some people have been very kind and have reached out and been like, "Hey, thanks for still doing the show, even when things are hard." And I'm like, "I'm not doing one last week." That's how I responded to that. But people have been responding to this, and then a lot of people were like responding to the Chicken Soup for the Soul thing. And one of my friends, Matt Nelson, he replied to the tweet saying, there needs to be a Forte Catholic podcast spinoff called Chicken Soup for the Schroll.
See, I imagine like this weird ASMR podcast where all you do is like you eat chicken soup into the microphone for 20 minutes. It's just you doing that. Is that
Yeah,
what,
those are the types of podcasts you create. Mine are very different. So I was like, okay, like honestly, like ever since I started doing Forte Catholic full time, I've been thinking about doing another podcast. I didn't know what it was. I was like, I haven't even hit like the dreaming stage of the ministry yet. Like I've just been like, I'm doing the things that need to be done, right?
Yeah.
My show, producing other people's shows, transferring donors over from Ablaze over to Forte Catholic. Like it's just been like life's been a mess, right? So I've only been able to do like the things that I need to do each day, not really dream or think or be creative and all of these things. So I was like, I want to do another podcast, and I don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be what like my other passions, sports or video games? Like what's it going to be? And I think this might be it. Because it still fits with the joy thing. And I think it would just be stories, not necessarily about faith, right? Which is why it wouldn't be on the show. But I was like, I don't want to just do this. I want to try it out. So it's not going to be its own show for a while, but we are going to do a segment here on the show called Chicken Soup for the Stroll. We'll do it a couple times and see what people think. So the whole point is heartwarming stories, just things to bring us joy. So we can't start this any other way than by reading one of the short stories from Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Go for
from the year 1994.
Are you allowed to do that? Is that legal?
I can do whatever I want.
Cool.
They can tell me that I can't after, but they can't stop me right now.
Yeah, it's true.
A college professor had his sociology class go into Baltimore slums to get case histories of 200 young boys. They were asked to write an evaluation of each boy's future. In every case, the students wrote, "He hasn't got a chance." 25 years later, another sociology professor came across the earlier study. He had his students follow up on the project to see what happened to those boys. With the exception of 20 boys who had moved away or passed away, the students learned that 176 of the remaining 180 had achieved more ordinary success as lawyers, doctors, and businessmen. The professor was astounded and decided to pursue the matter further. Fortunately, all the men were in one area, and he was able to ask each one, "How do you account for your success?" In each case, the reply was with feeling there was a teacher. The teacher was still alive, so he sought her out and asked the old but still alert lady what magic formula she had used to pull these boys out of the slums into a successful achievement. The teacher's eyes sparkled and her lips broke into a gentle smile. "It's really very simple," she said. "I loved those boys."
Oh.
Doesn't that make your little heart feel things? Like I just got goose pimples. This is the second time today I've got goosebumps.
Aw, I like that a lot.
It's just so sweet. Like so your little heart stirred, and I saw it in your little dead eyes that from the boy in 1994 that wanted to be sad. You just felt happy after that story. Why'd you feel happy?
Because it's there's something simple about it, but something true and pure about it. And it's neat because that little old lady who was like a teacher, and a lot of times the world would see that as a small thing, being a teacher, but to see the profound impact just by showing people that you really care about them. I like that. Yeah,
it's interesting. And it's interesting that like I didn't even really plan putting this segment with our conversation with the Reniers a second ago, but like that's essentially what they were doing. There is no magic formula. They love their kids and they sought Jesus with them, and I thought that was pretty cool. And like ironically enough, it made me think of another story. So I think I've shared before that one of the things that I've been doing is watching a lot of like singing shows, like or like talent shows,
musicals.
Right?
Oh, singing singing talent shows,
like American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, Australia's Got Talent, Sweden's Got Talent, Slovakia's Got Talent. Like I've been watching. There. Some of those are fake. Some of them are real. Like there's so many Got Talent shows.
But like, does Australia Got Talent?
Yeah.
Doubt.
They do. Father Rob Gallia was actually on that show.
Take that, Father Rob.
I think he just won that argument. Actually,
he definitely did. He's very talented.
So. Like one of the reasons is because like I was so dead inside for such a long time at the beginning of the quarantine and my life fell apart, all those things that we've discussed at length on the show. But I like one of the things I like, obviously like the musician in me likes the music and the talent, but like really why I watch those shows is like hearing the stories and watching people succeed. Like people achieving their dreams is big for me, like because I'm an achiever and I want to achieve my dreams and I often can't. So watching other people do it's the next best thing. So I was watching an episode that actually reminded me a lot of this story. Terry Crews, like the biggest man alive, right?
He's awesome. Yeah.
He's so large. He's such a
Yes.
large man. Did you ever see the video? It's a different video, but the video of him playing the drum set by just flexing his muscles.
Yes. Was that an Old Spice commercial?
They just connected him to like nodes, and he would flex and played the drum set better than most drummers. That Terry Crews. So you know how America's Got Talent works, right? So there's 4 judges. Yeah. They can buzz you off. Like if you're really bad, they can buzz you off. And then after the performance, they all talk to you, and then they vote. Does this person get to go through, right? At the beginning stages. Mm-hmm. But there's this thing called the golden buzzer. Have you ever watched the golden buzzer?
Yes.
Boy, the feelings. Every time that golden buzzer hits and it goes into slow-mo and the confetti and they're playing like Sarah McLachlan or I Will. You know, like they're playing something like that, and you're just like, well, that happened, and this is one of my favorite ones. So all the judges, it's this all black choir from I think it's in the same city. I think they were from, it was either Detroit or Chicago. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But what, big large city, all black choir, and the choir director, and he's like, I've been the director of this choir for 20 years, and like I really just started it as a way to keep these kids off the streets because it wasn't in one of the best areas of one of those cities, and so they perform, and they're just phenomenal. They're a choir. They're tremendous. There's so much talent in these young kids, mm-hmm. and they're asked they're interviewing at the end, and all 4 of the judges are just talking about how great they were and all of these things, and then they get to the end where they're about to vote, and Terry Crews walks out onto the stage. He's like, wait, and there's tears in his eyes. And he's like, I guess got goosebumps again. There's tears in this large man's eyes. And I grew up like crying is not manly, right?
Right.
I just started crying like 3 years ago. So 27 years of no crying. And then I see Terry Crews, and he comes out with tears in his eyes. He's like, wait. I just want to stop you. Like, these kids are me. Like, he grew up 10, 15 minutes from where they grew up. He grew up in the not good part of town. And he's like, all of these kids have this choir director who cares about them. That's how I got out. I had one person that cared about me, believed in me, and that's why I am the man today. That's why, he didn't say this, but it's why he got successful. It's why he is Terry Crews, right?
Yeah.
And so he walks over with tears in his eyes, and he slams the golden buzzer. And at this point, I'm just like, ah!
Oh, that's amazing.
It was
wow.
Great. It was really good. So feeling feelings is good, and just those little stories, especially like in times where it was in a time where I felt down and I needed the joy, and I wanted to find the joy. So. I didn't leave much time for your story.
How much time did you leave?
Like a minute.
Okay, real quick. I had messed up and was like late for a daily mass, and but we got the mass done on time and everything. I started late. Then next Sunday, I say mass, do my thing, and this lady comes up to me and just like reams me out. And I'm very, pastoral. Like,
this is a very joyful story. Thanks for
sharing. Right. So this happens, and I try to work with her, and but she wasn't hearing any of it. She didn't want to hear my apology, and it just like ruined my day. Right. The next Monday, I get a phone call, and someone's on the other end, and he says, "I want to talk to you about Mass Sunday." And I was like, "Oh man, here we go again. What did I mess up? What did I screw up?" And he said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I love your preaching. I love the way you say Mass. And I was in the back of the church, and I saw some lady getting really upset with you, but I want you to know that we love you here at the parish, and we're so glad that you're here." And never in my life has somebody called the parish just to say something nice to me. Never. Like, it meant so much to me. I started just going around to the rest of the staff. I was like, this person called to say something nice to me. That never happens to me. Like, people will say nice things, but like the fact that he went out of his way, not to send an email, but to call me, was amazing. I still think about that whenever I get bummed out. It's like, people do appreciate it. So the fact that he went that extra mile for that call meant the world to me.
That's beautiful. You did very well. Guys, let us know what you think about the Chicken Soup for this role segment. And also, you have 2 homeworks. 1, let us know how the segment went. And 2, everyone look up Father Anthony Sciarappa, call his parish, and say something nice about him this week.
Don't do that.
That's all we have. I love you guys. I'll be back next week. Say it.